Okay, it looks like we got a live stream. Everything seems to be okay. My name's Moshe, and I'm coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. And today is Friday, I think the 17th of October. Is that right? Let's see. Yeah. And it's late. It's 9 o'clock. Had stuff going on this morning. I couldn't deal with some stuff that I had to for a while, and then I got on it. Okay. Um, Let me go into the live stream and make sure everything's good in the live stream. Let me go into the live stream and make sure everything looks okay in the live stream. I gotta put a post up in the chat. Whoops, that didn't go well. I hit the wrong thing. Let me put a post up in the chat real quick. And this will just be quick. Seconds, I think. Thanks to the moderators. I'm pinning it up and then we'll be getting ready here. Okay. Being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament, I'm going to do some praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so we got a lot of stuff going on today, but I want to kick it off with what's happening to the US dollar and the other toilet paper currencies of the world that are backed by nothing. And I want to explain a few things to you, such as the price of gold and silver shot up again. And we haven't even seen any wars yet. This is pretty weird. Now, what's really going on, in my opinion, is this, and I don't think I'm alone here at all. BRICS is getting ready now. They're talking 2026, but that's not far away, of launching their digital currency called BRICS Pay. But the members of BRICS, which are over 30, I believe, they control about half the economy of the world. BRICS is going to have a backed digital currency. So people, the nations, now this is what I'm talking about now is trading amongst the nations, not an individual going into a store in Italy to buy a pair of Reebok running shoes. Okay, they got that too. But let's talk about country to country. So to get these brick credits, what do they call it? They call it a unit. Let's call it a unit, a bricks pay unit. You have to post collateral. Now they're taking a broad range of things, but it's kind of weird. Like, how do you post pork bellies or orange pulp or wheat or rice? You see, you can't. Why? Well, you could tell them, well, I took, 900 million thousand tons of rice and I set it aside to back my bricks pay money. How? The rice could sit there for what, a month? Two? And where are you going to put it? You're going to ship it to. See, BRICS got two banks. They got one in Beijing, China, and they got one in Moscow. So you can't send your rice to the bank. So how are they going to do this? They could have the countries say, okay, I pledge I'm backing this money with my corn and my rice and my wheat, but then you can't sell the corn, the rice, and the wheat, and it goes bad, it rots. You can't keep it for years. So I think they got a wake-up call because they were going to take everything as collateral. And you can't ship food items to the bank. The only way that would work is for the countries to pledge that they set the stuff aside, but you can't keep it aside for long. So I think that the geniuses, the transactional geniuses in Beijing and Moscow realize that they can't do that. So now they're back to gold and silver. Okay. So are they going to trust the countries to pledge the gold, like put it in a government vault and say, I've got 6 tons and give me that, and I pledge that as collateral, give me that much amount of money in BRICS pay digital currency so I can trade with the other countries. Well, that might not be good enough because a few of these countries are run, a lot of them are run by transactional lunatics that are psychotic. They don't know reality. And, they'll rip it off and they'll lie and they'll cheat and the whole thing will fall down. So I think that Russia and China had a wake-up call in their conversations and they said, okay, what we got to do is we got to have the people send the gold to us and we put it in our vault. The other way to do it is they send it to a Swiss bank or a bank in Belgium or Luxembourg or someplace like that, and then the bank makes a depository receipt, and the BRICS people get a lien on it, so the country can't take it out, something like that. But okay, they might let some of the bigger countries, trust them to post it as collateral. I mean, people could post oil as collateral. What are you going to do? Send barrels to the bank, So I think they might, I don't know, but they might be going towards hard deposits. Okay, so everybody knows that this BRICS pay currency, this digital currency, is backed by gold and silver. So, in other words, the people that are in BRICS know this is coming, so they're going out and buying all this gold and silver. Okay? And they, in the past, what we used to see was countries, America, UK, and others, run Now, I'm sure they had the CIA doing it, run the price of gold down. America had unlimited wealth to buy and sell. If they did it right, they didn't lose any money on it, and they just keep pushing the price of gold down when it starts going up by offering gold at lower prices, and it pushes it down. And they would do that all the time. Now I think maybe America's doing it, but it's not a big enough effort. America can't handle it by itself. I don't know. They don't talk about this too openly, but I believe that's what's going on. So now they want to run gold up. Look, you put 100 ounces of gold out there, and let's say the price is, let's just pick a number, it's selling at 4,000. It's not, it's higher, but let's say 4,000. And so then you put your gold out there for 4,022. Then you have another one of your accounts buy the gold for 4,022. So now the sales reported at 4,022, and then you do it again at 4,023, and you keep doing that, or you and your friends do it, and you keep working. Then other people put the price in at that, and they drive the price up. That's an immature way of doing it, but so why would they want to run the price of gold up? Because they have bought their ounces in the past weeks and months. And although some are probably still buying, and that adds to the frenzy, they want to get the price high so they can get a greater value for their gold. So if they got 20 tons of gold and the gold's worth 7,500, not 4,000, they practically doubled the amount of money they had. So they're making money out of thin air by manipulating lousy markets that are corrupt anyway. Remember, if they can't cheat at it, they don't have it. If they can't fix it, you can't gamble on it. That's how they are. They're Satan bots. Okay. That's what I think is going on now. I thought about it, and I'm pretty sure that's it. That's the driving factor. But let me tell you where we're at with this. Well, my numbers are an hour or two ago, but you'll get the idea. So a little earlier this morning, gold was $4,357. In the last 24 hours, gold hit a high of $4,378. It's really growing. Silver a few hours ago was $54.07. It's growing. And the high in the last 24 hours was $54.42. Silver hitting 60 is a hands down. Hitting 75, I think we'll see it. Well, the whole point of digital currency is they can manufacture money out of thin air. Does anybody really know how much digital currency is truly out there? The second thing is, see, what Trump wants is a national digital currency. So he's probably somewhat in favor of higher gold prices, 5,000, 7,500, 10,000 an ounce, because they've got a certain amount of tonnage of gold. Trump wants to use to fund his own American digital currency, right? And he wants to back it by gold because he's planning on competing with BRICS. So if BRICS is gold and silver backed and Trump's money isn't, they turn around and they kick at Trump's money and they say, what do you want American digital currency for? It's crap. See? But the way Trump would do it is unless you could prove your identity, you wouldn't be able to have a digital currency account. Okay? And then he would have to stop paper money from being used. So what it would look like is you get an announcement, let's just pick a date item, January 10th. You now have, 60 days to turn your money in, your paper money for digital. After that, American paper money is worthless. If you have money in your bank, no problem. It'll just be converted to digital currency units automatically. If you have money in your stock brokerage account, no problem. Savings and loan, no problem. Okay. So whatever it is, as long as it's in a controlled environment where they know who you are, it's okay, because it'll just automatically become digital money. Okay? Now, the stores can no longer take paper money. That cuts the illegals off. It makes it very, very hard for them. Now it monitors every transaction, period. So if the IRS or the FBI or whoever wants to know what's going on, at the end of the year, they just hit the computer and they get a readout of the total amount of digital money you spent. Okay? Then they get a readout of the total amount of digital money you declared. And if you spend a lot more than you declared, then they're going to ask you where you got it from. And a computer may do that. But actually, they would see where you got it from. So they wouldn't even have to ask. So if there still is an IRS and a Federal Reserve, which I doubt there would be, Trump would be able to get the people dead to rights on taxes. But I don't think that's what this is about. I think he wants to get rid of the Federal Reserve, and this digital currency, the president would have the control over it, not the Federal Reserve. So then he just outlaws the paper money, and the Federal Reserve is basically out of business without any legislation or anything, putting them out of business. And Trump's controlling all the currency. Now there's no more national debt. You understand that? The way it works now is people, well, the bank needs money, they go to the window from the Fed, I call it, and the Fed gives them money. So the Fed is making money out of thin air. The United States government, the mint, is good enough to print it for them for free. For free, they don't pay for the printing. And Federal Reserve creates the money out of thin air and charges the American government interest on it. They're not part of the American government. It's a private entity owned by people that keep these profits and don't have to pay taxes on them by law and don't have to reveal who they are. So these are likely the richest people in the world. Now, what happens is they control how much money they make, so they have the ability to make recessions, depressions, and inflation. They keep the money supply high, okay, and then people buy cars and houses and take trips and stuff like that, right? Okay. Then they pull the money supply back and people can't pay their bills. It's musical chairs, okay? They play the music and the American people walk around the chairs. That's your inflation when there's plenty of money out there. Businesses expand, sales go up, people invest money, and then they bring it down and they reduce the amount of money. They come up with some alibi story. They reduce the amount of money. And then in musical chairs, the music stops and there's 10 people in 9 chairs and somebody doesn't get a chair. Okay? That's the people going bankrupt. Now, as the recession increases, they play the music again. It keeps playing the same song, the recession song. Now there's 9 people and there's 8 chairs. Whoops, another one goes. Now they change the music to depression songs, so there's 8 people and 6 chairs. So 2 are gone. Now, what happens is the wealthy people, which are unaffected because they got so much money, they don't know what to do with it, they can handle 2, 3, 4 years of recession. Okay, it doesn't affect them. They got so much reserves. And when they wait for the regular people to run out of money, and then they buy their goods for a fraction of the dollar. So they buy something. Let's say they buy a guy's house that was $600,000. They get it for $275,000. And they just wait for it to go back up to 600,000 or even 800 or 900, which it will. That's how they make money. They do it on a more sophisticated way. They buy large pieces of land. They buy big companies for billions of dollars and stuff like that. Okay. Like you take a cruise company, 2, 3 years of recession, and they're not booking cruises, they're losing money, they got to sell. You're not going to go buy a cruise ship that costs $1 billion, even if you get it for 400 million or 200 million, but they will put together a new cruise line. Make a fresh start. Okay. To play this game, you need to have money that is backed by nothing. Now, the old silver certificates were backed by something, but not a lot. Because for every $1 silver dollar they had, they wouldn't issue one piece of paper money. They probably issued 40 or 60 or 100 or something like that, 300, who knows. It kept getting worse and worse. So then Nixon got rid of the silver altogether. Without a watered down money supply, America could never have built up their military machine. And that was Satan's big desire for them, is to be the hammer of the whole earth and keep everybody else in line. And that required a big military. And the way they got there was by using that military to force everybody to use the US dollar as the international currency. And they controlled the SWIFT money transfers and everything, right? So if anybody tried to go off the US dollar, they would attack them. Now they got a real problem with BRICS. And how the heck are they going to attack, China, Russia, Iran, Argentina, Brazil? I'm not sure Argentina's in it, Brazil is. And many other countries. How are they going to attack them all? So you have a concerted effort from these many countries, a good 30 of them, to wreck the US dollar. Roughly 50% of the world's economy. Trump tries to scare him with tariffs and then says if they're going to go join BRICS, and BRICS is going to try to undermine the US dollar, he's going to put tariffs on there. He's killing the American people with tariffs. The country's going economically. And he's playing a game. He's playing chicken. Chicken goes back to post-World War II days in the 50s when, it also had other applicability in World War II, but you'd have kids would take these cars, and you couldn't buy fast cars from the dealer and the car manufacturer back then. They really didn't have them. They had cars that would go 0 to 60 in 12 seconds, Today they do it in under 2 seconds, the supercars. Okay. Mommy, shut up! Hey! So the kids would hot rod the cars. They bought special carburetors. They put lift kits in, and changed the exhaust pipes to tuned exhaust and low pressure. You change the pistons for higher compression ratio, change the rear end axle ratio for better acceleration, put a good force speed in there. It was a Hurst shifter, and you could change the valves, and there was a lot of things they could do to the car. Okay, they could bore out the engine, take the engine and actually make it bigger. They knew about superchargers, but the kids would rarely ever put them on. Turbos, they didn't do back then. You could put a supercharger on. That was in the 60s, they were supercharging. But they would get the cars reasonably fast, and the kids would race. And the big thing, would be they'd race for pink slips or registrations or title. So if you lost the race, you had to sign your car over to the other guy. I don't know how much of that ever really went on other than in Hollywood movies. But what some of these kids would do is they would go in a rural area, like what? Like an old military airstrip that's abandoned or something like that, right? Or an old big dirt highway or old highway that's been shut, and the kids would get a mile or two from each other, and they would take their cars and drive them at each other to see who swerved away first. That's an idiot's game, but it was played. You see, people are dumb. You ever see the roller coasters they've developed now? They're really scary. They have some now around the world that go up a few thousand feet in the air. I think they go up, like 2/3 of a mile or so, like 3,000, 3,500, 4,000 feet. They're amazingly high. And you're up there in a little cart on a little track, and it's climbing and climbing. And then you get up here, and then it goes almost a 90-degree drop. You can't have a 90-degree drop because you could fall over, and go off. But they have the wheels hooked to track, so, it keeps it, more stable. But they could probably get 75, 80-degree angle or something like that. Maybe at points they got a 90-degree for a few feet. But people like that. They like trying God, but they're not aware that they're trying God. They they like that because it clears their mind from their problems, and they're just free falling or almost free falling, and they just love the feeling. There's people that go travel the world just to ride different roller coasters. Roller coaster aficionados. Weird. People do it. And they run around on these roller coasters. I think that if you took something like roller coaster cars and you put them out, let's say 15 cars across as a straight line, right? And then all 15 cars go on this big track, and you run them on this track at an incredibly fast rate of speed, like 100, 125 miles an hour, something like a big plane for takeoff, right? You don't want to take off, but you want it really fast. And it goes for like 300 yards. And at the end, there's a brick wall with 36-inch razor sharp spikes. And you take the people and you stop them an inch or two in front of the spikes. I think people would pay you 25, $50 to go on that ride. Death wish. Crazy people. They don't have such a ride like that. The governments would never let you have a ride like that. But that shows to me how crazy they are. And the roller coasters they turn the people upside down. They turn them at all kinds of crazy angles. When I was a kid, you went up on the roller coaster and you didn't turn upside down. You didn't get very crazy angles. You went up, you went down, you went up, little turns, and it was, crazy stuff. Now they put them in the dark with lights flashing, and you go to Space Mountain in Disney, you're riding around in the dark, you can't see, and you're just experiencing the falls. First time I went on that was around 1980, and I didn't know what it was. Then I got on it, and oh boy, it was it wasn't what I didn't enjoy it. It was in the dark. I didn't know what was going on. Um. So anyway, that's what I think is going on here, and I think Trump is failing to stop BRICS, and I think BRICS is prevailing to stop Trump. Okay. Um. So that's in terms of big. That's massive. Okay. And the dollar is weak. It bounced a little. Let me see. Look at the shekel and see. It's hard to say because the shekel could be weakening, and it makes it look like the dollar's strengthening, but I don't think so. Let me take a look at xe.com and see what they say. There's so much news. People help me out and send the news in, and there's so much I put up on Telegram. It's massive, but it's all well, it's almost all relevant news. You know, it's good news. It's important. There's so much stuff happening. We're speeding up. You know. All right. We'll hit it against the shekel. Yeah, it's getting a little stronger on the shekel. The $1 buys 3.32 shekels. The highest I remember was like 4.1, but it used to stay around 3.7. So it's bad for us with dollars, but that's life. Now, let's try it against the euro. Um, the euro's rather strong against the dollar, so the dollar's weak. €1 buys $1.17. It usually goes around $1.05, 8. It's a weak dollar. That's what Trump did. Okay, let's look at the GBP, the British pound. It British pound is not doing that great. It's like with the euro. It's the British pound is. Wait a second. Something's not clicking. Wait. Let me do this again. I don't know what happened. Oh, I see what happened. It went off. Okay. I can fix. Okay, now I gotta get this back to the dollar. Oh, what happened? Let me get back. Still not right. Let's put it in. Oh, there we go. Let me get rid of this. Okay, so now I got dollars into British pounds. So now it's, yeah, the dollar's weak on the British pound. The pound's $1.30, about $1.35. They have one British pound brings in $1.35. The Swiss franc used to be running around par with the dollar. What is the Swiss franc? Hold on a minute. I can't remember. USB? I'll look it up. CHP, that's it. California Highway. Oh, CHF, rather. California Highway Patrol. CHF. No, it's got, anyway, they changed the website. It's annoying with something to use it. Anyway, so the dollar is really weak. Okay. The dollar's weak. The economy's bad in America, believe me. Um, the dollar is not doing good. All right, we got some prayer requests. Let's pray for SC Sierra Charlie has a dog with some sort of lumps. They seem to be benign, but let's pray for the dog that SC Sierra Charlie has with lumps, for healing for the dog. Okay, SC's dog healing. Okay, do I have more? I think so. RG Romeo Girl. RG Romeo Girl. Prayer for better, more relaxed sleep. For RG, better, more relaxed sleep. Um, a lot of people uh, feel that their sleeping improves when they get into red light therapy. Okay. Um, I can't tell you it's going to work on everybody, but a lot of people tend to be that way. It works for them. Um, there was a headline in where was it? Haaretz newspaper in Israel. It said after the Gaza war, Netanyahu's next battle, avoiding an investigation into October 7th, 2023. Yeah, but didn't say 2023, but I wanted to make sure you knew what I was talking about. And that is worse than his three criminal cases. And I am of the opinion that he'll come up bad on that if there's a real investigation. And that could mean life in jail or, you know. So in my book, if he's really going to face that, he would prefer to have Israel destroyed, so there is no nation Israel anymore. That's how sick he is. A lot of the countries that have a lot of oil, like UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, they have very, very strong currencies, and they don't fluctuate around. They just stay strong all the time. The problem with the weak dollar in America, let me try to get you guys to understand this. I have an MBA, and that's Masters in Business Administration, and I learned a lot of stuff from them. I didn't really learn how to go make money. They don't teach you that. They teach you how to go work for the elite, the transactional elite that own these big companies. And you can go work for them and help them get richer. That's what it's designed. But it teaches you enough that if you do go out on your own, you're going to probably fare better. Okay. The tariffs cause other countries' goods to be sold in America at higher prices. The tariff. So buying goods from other countries is expensive now. However, not everything is only made by another country. There's things that are made in America by American companies that don't have any tariffs associated with them. They're tariff-free because they're made in the United States. Sales tax is going to apply to goods made in or out of America. So let's dig deeper. Okay? American-made companies are seeing, well, let's say the guy makes, what we do in business school is you just call it a widget. You make some item, you manufacture something. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a shoe, it could be a shirt, it could be a table, who knows, whatever you want. Okay. So these goods that were coming from overseas now go up. If it's China, they go up like 30 to 40%. So the price of the Chinese goods didn't go up. The tariff drove it up. So can the Chinese company reduce their prices by 30 or 40% to keep the prices the same as they were before Trump jacked the tariffs? Yes. Do they do that? I don't know. I think they do it to some extent. But it gives the American manufacturer a greater edge. And in a lot of instances, it allows him to raise his price. Not because he has tariffs, but because he can, because the foreign goods cost more. That would apply to foreign car manufacturers, foreign tires, cameras, phones, the cell phone, you name it, right? Television, hats, sunglasses, whatever. Okay. So these people are greedy and they're going to profiteer off of this. Now, how else does this work? Well, there's an inflation going on in the United States. Part of it is due to the cheap dollar. American good manufacturers, Acme widgets, doesn't want to not raise their prices. If it used to be they sold their widgets for $109, Model 182 widget was $109. I'm talking like business school to you now. So they're going to keep selling it for what did I say, $109, right? Then they could keep selling it for $109, but 109 US dollars is a lot cheaper in value than it was 6 months ago. So they're going to want to get 115 US dollars for it because the dollar cheapened. And if they can't, they'll just sell the goods overseas. And get their 115 that way. But what they also do is they raise the price for the inflation, okay? And then they raise the price again because the foreigners, their competitors from foreign lands, have to pay the tariffs and they can't compete. And it leaves room for them to profiteer even more. So these people are going to town and you're getting killed with inflation. And that's why your prices on everything are going up. But what this is going, let me tell you what this turns into, because I don't know if all of you know this. If this doesn't reverse, which I don't see any signs of it doing, it turns into a recession and then a depression. Why? Because the knee-jerk reaction for people in America is to buy less things or to buy cheaper things. The buying cheaper things isn't working out very well anymore because of the tariffs. Where do the cheaper things come from? Oh, China, Vietnam, places like that are hit with high tariffs. So they're buying American stuff and paying more, or basically what they're really doing is not buying unless they have to buy. They just don't want to buy. Now, they're going to buy eggs and bread and meat and toilet paper and paper towels, okay? And they're going to buy gas for their car, milk, cereal, whatever. That they're going to buy. Okay, but a lot of other stuff they're not going to buy. Like what happens in the liquor industry is they don't buy, I got to try to, Johnny Walker Black Label. They'll buy the red label, which is probably 25% cheaper. And then soon they're not going to buy the red label. They're going to buy, old Billy Bob Scotch, and that's 25% cheaper than Johnny Walker Red Label. It's, cheap carcinogenic crap, but it has alcohol and it gets you drunk. And that's what people are going to start doing. I believe it's well underway. What are people not going to buy? Well, they're not going to buy furniture unless the sofa falls apart. They're not going to buy a bed or a mattress. They're not going to buy a dishwasher. They're not going to buy an oven, and they're not going to spend unless they have to. And that creates a recession because the companies can't sell their goods. So if they can find a market overseas, so be it. But a lot of countries, the overseas countries are charging America tariffs like America's charging them. So you're going into recession. But the crazy thing is the price of gold and silver is soaring. And I know some of you bought gold and silver because I've been talking about it for the longest time. It's soaring. A lot of people don't want to cash their gold and silver in yet because what are they going to do? Hold paper money that's deteriorating. But that's another story. Um, let's go through the scripture that talks about this. Jeremiah 50:51 doesn't really explain this. Isaiah 47 doesn't come out and say it, but it's rather obvious. And we can cover that. I want to cover something with Disney World with you first, because this is so stupid. I'm telling you, Disney's gonna go knock themselves into oblivion. What Disney's trying to do now, remember they've been under spiritual warfare, so they're not using the demons for guidance anymore because we cut that out. So they're raising their prices even more, focusing on Orlando. And you walk around Orlando and hardly anybody's in the park. Now that's the time. I think they're getting 140, 150 per person per day park entrance. So, okay, a family of four is going to spend about 600 a day getting into the parks. Then they're going to get hit with $10 or $15 in parking if they have a car. They're going to get hit for a hotel. Then food, and then gifts and stuff like that. So there's a lot more money, you know. Their park prices, I was talking to somebody yesterday, are going up, and they're expected to get up to about 200 a day. Let me tell you the marketing strategy that Disney's doing, and let me show you why it's wrong. And it's terrible. It's horrible for them, but good riddance to Disney. It's a demonic operation. Okay, uh, they're instead of making the park where it used to be, you got in for oh, I go 25 years ago, you were paying $28 to get in. So now you're paying about 6 times, 5 or 6 times that. See, they really ran the price up, okay? But not so much. At that time, I bought a Corvette convertible with automatic, and it was about $42,000 or something, 44. And the new Corvette they're coming out with their hot rod is without the options is 180,000. So figure it's a $200,000 car. So yeah, 5 times. Okay. So anyway, people go. And let's accelerate a little. Let's go up to 2010 years ago. People were probably paying about $80, $90, $70 to get in the park, and the lines were grueling. So what they had done around 25 years ago in Universal Studios was rather intelligent. They had 2 hotels in Universal Studio, a more expensive one themed after some place in Italy, I forget the name. And it was about roughly 300 a day, but it was a very, very nice hotel. The rooms were rather large, very well furnished, very nice beds, big bathrooms, big closets. You know, they had different tiered restaurants in the hotel. They had a really fine restaurant there. I ate at once. It was for 2 people considerably over $100. Not 180, yeah, 120, 130. It was good. Uh, okay, so you had those. You had the restaurants. You had concierge service. You had a lot of good things going on, right? And if you went and stayed at the hotel, you got a special pass that would let you go on all the rides without waiting online. Now, I used it, and we'd go there, and you just walked in. It had a special queue. They had a special entrance for people with this kind of pass, and you went in, and you had a queue, but there was no one in it. But you had to walk around all this stuff, and then you just got there and you waited a minute or two, and they put you on the ride. The guy would ask you how many are you, and then you wait a minute or two or three, and they put you in the ride. It was very fair. No line, or next to no line. I remember Back to the Future. That was a really popular ride, and we would have to wait. I think they closed it, I believe. Universal replaced it with something else because the kids got older, and the young kids didn't know what Back to the Future was. So we would just walk right on without a line. But when you got in and you were waiting to get in the car, you had to wait for the previous people to finish. It was about 4 or 5 minutes. So you had a few minutes. Maybe you had, worst case, you had 8 or 10 minute wait. That would be extreme. The worst of the worst of the worst. Usually you had 3 minutes or something like that. But as the years rolled on, 3, 4 years later, more and more people were doing this, and then you started having 10-minute, 15-minute waits to get in. So your no wait line had a line unto itself, you see. Okay. So Disney started, and they still do it now. They have 3 hotels at Universal, and I think if you stay there, you can get that. But instead of a 45-minute line, you're going to have a 20-minute line. It's watered down. It didn't work. Too many people are doing it. Okay. So back around 25 years ago, if you went to Disney and you wanted to beat the lines, right? So in other words, you didn't want to have a lousy day. You wanted to get on the rides, and then you wanted to go eat, have nice meals, take a jacuzzi, sit in the swimming pool, get some sun, walk around at the shops. You didn't want to spend your whole day waiting online in 93-degree heat. Or sometimes it'd be 100 degrees. So what did you do? Well, you could hire a guide. They didn't have this business with the hotels going on. You could hire a guide, and it was $600 for an afternoon, half a day. So it was, I think, $1,200 for a whole day, $600 for a half a day. Back then, the entrance to the parks was, $30, $25. So $600 was a lot of money, and it didn't click. Well, I had the money. It didn't make sense to me to drop $600. Although in a half a day, when you don't wait online, you're not going to get on every ride in every park in Disney. Back then, I think they only had 4 parks. They didn't have any Harry Potter, if that's there, or the other place. I don't know. They didn't have any Star Wars. I think it's Star Wars Disney has. I don't know who has Harry Potter. One of those jerks has it. But Harry Potter is just a witchcraft thing. And you would be able to do all the rides you wanted to in that half a day. So if you wanted to do all the Magic Kingdom rides, you wouldn't get on all of them, but you'd get on the good ones if you wanted to. That sort of thing. Never did it, though. So let's fast forward some years, jump ahead 15, 20 years, and they started having fast passes. Now, the last time I ever stepped foot in Disney would have been 20, 21 years ago. Okay, I wouldn't go there, and I wouldn't suggest anybody else go there. Okay. But it's a good marketing exercise. So the they came up with a thing called Fast Pass, or you would pay one price, I think, in Disney, and you would get on special priority lines. Then they changed it to uh, another thing they came up with was you could book a ride in advance. So you went and you put your card, your pass in a machine, and you programmed that you wanted to get on this ride, uh, and it would book you a reservation, if you will, on that ride in an hour and 45 minutes from then. So you would show up at that ride roughly an hour and 45 minutes. They gave you a little leeway. And you would get on the ride very, very fast. Maybe you'd have a 5-10 minute wait or less, right? Very quick. It worked well. They got rid of that, and then they started charging people per ride for that. And they charge $8 to $10 per ride. So if you wanted to go to Disney and you didn't want to be there all day waiting on, I remember going there waiting online, sweating, getting tired, your feet get tired, the heat runs you down, you're hydrating, and it's rather annoying, right? And what happens? You get knocked out. Okay, so what kind of a restful vacation was it? Not restful at all. So if the parents wanted to go on a restful vacation, Disney certainly wasn't it. And, some people, when they had older kids, like this is again 25, 30 years ago when things were safer, and you had kids that were like 13, 14, maybe 11 or 12, even with an older brother or sister. You could go to the hotel and the mother would go to the spa and get work and lay out in the sun and work on a tan and all that. And the dad would go to the Disney golf course and play golf, right? And the kids would go to the park themselves. They didn't want to go to the park. Who the heck wants to go there? It's hot, it's crowded, and you wait online. What kind of fun is that? You're online for 45, 60 minutes, and you're on a 2.5 minute ride. Then you get off, and now you got to walk in the sun and get back on another line. It wasn't exactly a lot of fun, right? So, what, you know, so you could go there, and let's say you wanted to see 10 rides. You wanted to do 10 rides in Magic Kingdom, and you were going to pay $10 for a fast pass. So you would pay an extra 10 rides is for most people. If you're there with little kids, you'll pick 10 rides with little kids. If you're there for wilder rides for older kids, 15 or you'll pick that. It varies. If you're medium, you'll pick the dark rides, which are not really hairy. And so 10 rides would do it. So you're in for $100 a person, right? So what Disney intends to do is raise their prices to $200 a day. Their people going in, entering the park is way the heck down, right? Because people can't afford it. Now they're going to go up to about 180, 200 a day, but there's not going to be lines. Or if there are lines, there'll be 12, 15-minute lines. Nothing people are going to get too bent out of shape about. You'll basically have a much more pleasant experience. So they're trying to target, they know they're going to lose 2/3 of the audience that they used to have 25 years ago. But on the other hand, the foreigners, if their currency holds up, will be able to come, but who knows if that'll ever happen. So they're, right now, if you're in the UK, your money is worth a lot. So going to Disney for them is a lot cheaper than it is for an American. Or if you're in the EU, it's not a lot cheaper, but it's noticeably cheaper. Okay. So this is what Disney's trying to do, and they're failing. They're going to be reducing their hours even in the summer because they're not going to be able to pay for more than one shift. So they're going to probably open at 10 o'clock and close at 8 or 7 or something like that, make one shift, right? The parks are usually not very crowded. I mean, I've seen them open at 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. They'll go 10 to 8. A lot of people don't care about staying in the parks after 8 o'clock. They're tired, they're wiped out, their kids are falling asleep, they're overtired, and they'll shut down. If it's bad, they'll shut whole hotels or they'll shut floors in the hotels. So if they got a hotel with 12 floors, they'll open 4 or 5 floors. If they got, other smaller places where they're more like townhouses, and they'll close them. They'll close hotels and they'll close, and these are the people that are going to come in. Is a whole different kind of person. Let me explain. Somebody comes with a classic goal, 2 kids and 2 parents. They're spending $800 a day. They're normally going to go in for about 4 days. So they're dropping $3,200. Now, the hotels I used to put about $280, $300, $330 on are $700 now. So those hotels will go for $800, $900, right? If you don't get a Disney hotel and you go off property, then you got to drive in traffic. And if you miss an exit or you get lost, it could take you 20, 30 minutes to get back. So you're there with a car full of kids. Daddy, where are we? We don't want to get there. What's going? So the people stay in the hotel. Okay. And when they got you in the hotel, then they got you for the meals. So they're not going to just, charge you $12 for a hamburger and $6 for fries. They're going to charge you $23 for a hamburger and $12 for fries in the park. That's where they're headed. And they're going to have very special, things that are going to be expensive in the park. Good restaurants. They're going to have rent a golf cart so you don't have to walk. You could drive. It's only $170 a day. Things like this. They might start with a guide for your kids. So if you don't want to go schlep around the park in the heat, hire a guide for $300 a day, and the guide will take your kids and be the babysitter and take them around all the rides, and different things will happen. You want an ice cream? 25 years ago, I think the ice creams were $2 or something. They're probably $4 or $5 now. They'll be $8, $9, $10. That's what Disney's trying to do. They don't want to mass market anymore. They want to market to people that are probably making over $250,000 a year. That'll go there for a few days and drop $10,000 or $12,000. There's not that many people making $250,000 that are going to do it, but people making $700,000, $800,000, they'll do it. They don't care. The cruise ships did the same thing, and the cruise ships going up and up and up, and they're charging more and more and more, and then they're going to crash. They're trying to do. You see, the cruise ships are doing what Disney did back in the 80s, 90s, up until about 2 or 3 years ago. What they're doing is they're They used to be you paid one price that was reasonable on the cruise ship, and basically everything was covered unless you wanted to take the tours at the ports. They didn't even have alternative restaurants when I was traveling. I don't think they had any. So what could you buy when you're on the boat? Well, you could go gambling if you were stupid and you like being cheated, because they cheat. You were able to buy stuff in the gift shop, which was expensive. Well, some of it was reasonable. They had duty free. I occasionally would buy cologne or aftershave or something like that, or with deodorant. And then they had alcoholic beverages, and it was about it. Now they charge the people $50, $100 a person to eat in the alternative restaurant. It used to be you could sit on the ships, the 5 stars, and if you didn't like the food on the menu, you could order a salmon, a T-bone steak, and very good dishes, and they just gave it to you for free. So if you just wanted to have a nice, good T-bone steak every night, you could. You didn't have to pay attention to the menu. Now, if you try that, they'll sell it to you for $25. At the general dining room, it used to be free. The room service used to be free. If I'd go back to the room during the day, sit on the balcony, and I'd get hungry, and I would order up room service, and I used to get a cheese and fruit plate free. I would get French fries. I used to like French fries. I'd get their French fries free. And you could get hamburgers and pizza and, a few things, right? And I'd give them I used to keep cash with me on the cruise back then. And I'd give them like $2 tip, and they were pretty happy. We're talking 25 years ago, and breakfast occasionally I would get in the room. And it was usually not a really good breakfast. You'd get like eggs, maybe some juice, coffee. I don't know. Generally, I would order for breakfast if I wanted it in the room. I'd order juice, orange juice, and coffee, and maybe a Danish or something that I probably didn't eat. Just so I didn't have to wander around to the dining room and get coffee, or I didn't have to make it in the room with the coffee machine. And now they want to charge you for everything. They want to charge you for room service. I mean, it's crazy what they're doing. They're trying to sell you $50 a head dinners. How good could the food be? It's in a refrigerator the whole cruise. You got to ask yourself that. How great is it going to really be? Now they have special refrigerators, but you see, so they're doing the same thing as Disney. They're at the point now where their prices are very high and they're still booking cruises, but the economy's killing them. You're going to see I would say by Thanksgiving, they're still doing okay because people paid and booked these cruises 6 months ago. But I would say by Thanksgiving, you're going to see the cruise industry sucking wind. And I remember when COVID hit, they would give you a 1-week cruise for $400. And that was your food, everything, entertainment, everything, $400. I understand now they're trying to sell priority seating for the shows or something like that. I mean, they are going so crazy. And they're going to, so you were able to go on cruises. Remember that 400 a week, I think it was an inside cabin, but that covered all your food. That covered per person, your 3 meals a day, your entertainment, your recreation, all of that stuff, right? For a 7-day cruise. So you're spending let's say $37 a day, or $38 a day for 3 meals. Now, you can't go out and eat that way in the restaurants, not 3 meals. I mean, you could have when that happened, you were able to have a steak dinner, roast beef, they got lobsters and very expensive food. And, for breakfast, you could, you know, do all kinds of things. Have a bagel and lox. You could have omelets, uh, danishes, juice, all kinds of stuff, lunch, all kinds of stuff. Pizza during the day for free. Yeah, I mean, all this stuff, and there's no way you were able to eat it would be, you didn't have to spend that to eat in your house, but you had to prep the food. Now you didn't have to clean, they cleaned your cabin. You had entertainment all day, all the time. You had the swimming pools, the jacuzzis, you had the gym, you didn't have to pay for a gym. People were living on cruise ships. They weren't, people were booking like a month on a cruise ship. They had four cruises. So when they got back to America at the end of the first cruise, they got off, they'd leave their luggage because the attendant knew they were coming back, and they'd go off and they'd get a taxi, and they'd go to one of the drugstores or the supermarket and buy whatever they needed, for supplies if they needed anything. They didn't. They just stay on the boat. They didn't have to be bored. And this went on, and people would just, they go and then they'd go home for a few weeks, or they'd take a cruise for a week, and then they would go home for a week and take a different cruise line. And, the cruises were dirt cheap. They were, they were hoping you would get on the cruise and you would buy tours, you would buy things in the gift shop, you would drink alcohol, you would gamble, you would do anything to spend to get you somehow to spend money on the cruise ship. You had to do tips. I mean, you didn't have to, but you did, right? So that's what people were doing. And then after the COVID, they started building up their prices and they went crazy. So they were never that crazy before. Now they're that crazy. I remember in the 1990s, you were able to get a cabin with a balcony for maybe 2,400, something like that. Then it started to be 3,200, 3,600. It went up for the same accommodations. Um, People take repositioning cruises. Those are dirt cheap, where you go from one part of the world to another, but you're spending most of your cruise on an ocean, and that it can get boring every day you go out and look at the ocean. If you look at the ocean on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it looks the same every day. So anyway, all right. The economy in America is tanking, and Isaiah 47 shows it to us. Verse 1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babel. Babylon is what it says in English. It means confusion. It's not Babylon in the Hebrew, it's Babel, and that's not the name of a city or a place. It's just confusion. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans were basically witches, fortune tellers, things like that, in Babylon, the old Babylon, which is where Iraq is today. For thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Now, all this has a strong connotation of poverty, doesn't it? Keep going. It becomes more and more. Take the millstone and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. So the royal person is acting like poverty now. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. You see, what most people don't get here is, I'm going to use one word here, transactional. You got it? I will take vengeance, and others. It would be non-transactional too, I suppose. I will take vengeance and I will meet thee as a man. Not as, I'm sorry, and I will not meet thee as a man. So there's no talking their way out of this, okay? One way of looking at it. As for our Redeemer, Jehovah of Hosts is his name, so we could think of the year of redemption. The Holy One of Israel, Kadosh Yisrael. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans. So is the grid out? Well, if the grid wasn't out, would they be sitting in darkness? No. If there was some sort of an eclipse and they had the lights on, would they be sitting in darkness? No. For thou shalt no more be called Lady of Kingdoms. That's America. And you've got to understand that what you think is running America is transactional. Lady of Kingdoms. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted my inheritance. And given them into thy hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou heavily laid thy yoke. He's talking about Israel. There's as many known Judah people, Judah, which is, Judah and Levi. There's very close to the same amount in America as there is in Israel. The 10 tribes are still lost. It's well believed that the North American Indians are not all the 10 tribes, but part of the 10 tribes. And the laying their yoke on them is, Trail of Tears, Indian Wars, all the horrible things they did to these people. Okay. And show them no mercy. Look at Trump. He sits there and says, if Hamas is going to keep executing the people in Gaza, I'll get into what they're doing. They're killing people every day. If they're going to keep executing people in Gaza, we'll have to kill them. Okay, Trump sucker, who's we? You ain't going to do it. America will never, ever in a million years send their military there to fight shoulder to shoulder with Israel. That will be the end of their relationships with any Muslim state. They'll never do it. I don't believe they'll ever do it. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't have a scripture. I don't think they ever will. So I think he means, I'll tell Netanyahu to go kill him. That's what he means. Netanyahu, Israel, his bulldog. I'm in Isaiah 47:7. And thou saidst, I shall be a lady forever. Okay, who is the lady? Columbia. The District of Columbia is not part of the 50 states, runs the 50 states. It's some kind of flat-chested woman with shortish hair. The Columbia Motion Pictures icon, the Statue of Liberty, the woman on the roof of the Capitol building. Thou sayest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart, neither didst remember the latter end of it. Therefore, hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwellest carelessly, that sayest in thy heart, I am and none else. Beside me I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. And these two things shall come upon thee in a moment. See, it's going to happen really suddenly over there, and we're going to be taken by surprise. In one day, the loss of children, that means the Satan bots that serve and worship this demonic thing, the government there, are gone, dead. And widowhood married to the land, loses the land becomes a desolation. They shall come upon thee in their perfection for the multitude of thy sorceries and for the great abundance of thy enchantments. That's how they run everything with witchcraft. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge, it hath perverted thee. And thou hast said in thy heart, I am and none else beside me. Well, the hammer of the whole earth is going to fall apart. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth. Everything Trump touches turns to coal, to junk. Everything he does goes bad. He's in a snare. Jeremiah 50, verse 24. And mischief shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off. And desolation, married to the land, desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou shalt be able to profit it, so be thou mayest prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly procrastinators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. All this witchcraft stuff. Well, when newspapers used to be popular, I'm sure a lot of you remember that. Every single newspaper they ever had the astrology in there. I don't think the Israeli newspapers ever did. But for the most part, all of them wanted to give us. Maybe the Arabic papers didn't have it either. But in America, every newspaper had the astrology in there. People are dumb enough to think they can buy a 10-cent newspaper and it would tell them their fortune. What about fortune cookies in the Chinese restaurant? I think people took it seriously. Behold, they shall be as stubble. The fire shall burn them. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before it. But they're going to get burned up. Thus shall they be unto thee, with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter. None shall save thee. Yep. See, the bad economy's all over in that, and the economy is bad. The drought is getting worse and worse. It's coming. I mean, it's coming. It's just coming. It's not. It's speeding up. It's going faster and faster. Now, what I just read to you, the churches never would do the Bible study I just did because they don't want the people to give up on America because they like the whore. They work with the whore. Okay, Israel works with the whore, which is America. The U.S. attacked another boat in the Caribbean, I imagine nearish Venezuela on Thursday. Today's Friday. And it had survivors. I'm reasonably sure it was tied to drug trafficking, and I don't know more about that yet, but it'll come out. Los Angeles County officials voted on Tuesday, today's Friday, to declare a state of emergency over. This is crazy. I'm telling you, this is ruler against ruler, against the ongoing federal immigration raids. So because of the raids, they're declaring an emergency, okay, in Los Angeles County. What Trump did is an emergency, and that's enabling him to get money available to him to help people that are victims. I don't see a better word than victims of the federal government throwing these illegals that snuck into the country, throwing them out. Unbelievable. I mean, this is that they're going to give economic aid to these people that got somebody thrown out or something. Trump's going to react to this, cut their money or something. Israel believes that Hamas has yet 10 dead bodies of hostages they have not turned over, yet they have them. And Netanyahu has threatened them. And Trump is threatening them too. So what do you think is going to happen? Hamas is killing hundreds inside Gaza. The head of the Khan Yunis militia pleading to the international community to protect the Gazans against Hamas's executions. They're executing people they think are their enemies. There's a lovely character named, no, I'm just making a joke. What's his name? Fatih Hamad, a senior Hamas officer. All of you 7 million Palestinians abroad, enough of the warming up. You have Jews everywhere. So he's saying there's Jews everywhere around you. I guess the translation's weak into English. And quit the warm-ups. We must attack every Jew on the globe by way of slaughter and killing. This is what one of the leaders of Hamas said yesterday. Maybe the day before, I think it was yesterday. Go kill all the Jews. And you think there's going to be peace with them? This is a weird one here. I don't think America did this at all. I don't think Israel did it either. A drone attack hit the prosecutor's office in the Mexican city of Tijuana. They call that TJ, I think, on the U.S. Border. This is a key hub for drug trafficking, authorities said Wednesday, without identifying the suspected source of the drone. Probably cartels. I mean, could it have been America? It's not the way Trump would work. The Baja State prosecutor Maria Elena Andrade told reporters that the attack with 3 explosive-laden drones caused some damage but resulted in no casualties. Interesting, huh? Tijuana is a major crossing point between Mexico and the United States and a key center for cross-border drug smuggling. In June, Mexico authorities discovered a tunnel from Tijuana extending toward the United States. Well, why do I think it was probably going into the United States? Because I do. The Hamas, what's called the Arrow unit, is going around Gaza breaking the legs of civilians with metal tubes. I don't know, the pipe, I guess is what it means. You wanted Israel out. This is how it looks when you get Israel out. Now, this came in of an Israeli respectable newspaper today, I believe. Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and the UAE have issued a clear warning to President Trump unless the agreement on Hamas is enforced and the group is fully disarmed, they are going to withdraw their support, no funding, no participation. The absence of their leaders from the Sharm el Sheikh summit was no coincidence. They cautioned that Qatar is attempting to bring Hamas back into play. I've told you Qatar is an enemy, but that enemy gave Trump a $400 million airplane. So how could Trump call him an enemy? Nobody else gives me a $400 million airplane. I got supporters that give me $1 million here and there, but not 400. So the UAE, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia are finished with Qatar. And they're telling Trump if he doesn't fully disarm, he's basically, they're out of this picture altogether. So, look, let's just stop right here and I'll just give you the bottom line. The war is going to continue with Hamas and Gaza very shortly. I told you when it started up, 1 to 2 weeks. I think that's about it. Netanyahu made an announcement. I specifically know how many bodies of the dead hostages you're not returning. It's 10, and you better cut that crap out. You're doing it on purpose, and they're killing people, fighting militias, killing clans, executing people. I put some of this stuff up on Telegram. You can see them breaking legs in the street. You ever hear the saying with collection people for the bookmakers and the mob, they call them a leg breaker? Okay. These people are leg breakers. And the people in Gaza are screaming for help to stop them. And they said they're not going to pull out of governing Gaza, and they said there's no way they're going to disarm. This is Trump's stupidity, another big mistake from the Donald, and now the Gazans are paying for it. So this war has got to fire up again in hours or days. Now, they will try this. They will sit down to negotiate with Trump, and if Netanyahu sends delegates, that's fine too, and drag it out. All the meantime, they're going to be beating up people, killing people, and getting rid of their enemies, and making sure everybody in Gaza knows they're not going anywhere. And they must be obeyed, and they rule with an iron hand. They don't even rule with an iron hand. They rule with a grade 5 titanium hand. That's about 4 times strong, at least 4 or 5 times, probably 5, 6 times stronger than steel or iron. So there's 2 grades of titanium. You normally see grade 2, which is a lot harder, noticeably harder than stainless steel. But grade 5 is 4 times harder than grade 2, so it's a lot harder than steel and lighter. And it doesn't experience corrosion. It's good stuff. Okay, so that's what's going on. You know, if you want to buy a titanium, big, thick bracelet or necklace, let's say you wanted to buy something like this in grade 5 titanium, you know, this is sterling silver. Oh, I don't know, you probably would have to pay $150 or something like that. You go to these crooked watchmakers and you want to get a watch in titanium, you know, they'll charge you an extra $2,500 for it, which has about as much titanium as one of these links or 2. Well, sometimes it has a bracelet, so it's, you know, but you know, it's a joke, you know. And I tell you, the jewelry industry is toast. I told you this, I'll tell you again. They got machines you can buy. They cost $25,000 to $75,000, and they make lab-grown diamonds. They take a few weeks, and the diamonds are indistinguishable from natural diamonds. There is no test to tell the difference. What the manufacturers are supposed to do with the honor system is laser etch in microscopic portions, is, you know, like a serial number, but basically a statement that this is a lab-grown diamond. Okay. Now, people can buy these machines. Do you think the individual people buying the machines may get themselves a warehouse and buy 5 or 6 machines and generate, 30 or 40 diamonds a year and make a living off them? You can't tell the difference. They have to go to a cutter and he has to cut the diamond, and then, or they do it themselves. So you can find a diamond cutter, and then they got to polish it. They need the polishing tool, or they send it to a guy, and then they have somebody set it in a ring or other piece of jewelry, and they sell it. And they're going to sell it as a real diamond. So they'll sell, let's say, 1.5 carat instead of, uh, selling it for $300 or something like that. They'll sell it for 2,000 or 2,500. You think the Chinese people, the Vietnamese people, and the people in India are not making diamonds and not laser etching them? You don't go to jail for that. I mean, if you sell them, you might, as a natural diamond, you might get hit with fraud or something like that. But probably more civil fraud than criminal fraud. But again, they can't prove it. They have to catch you with the machine and the diamonds and selling it. You know, you could probably buy a machine and grow yourself a couple of really nice 2 carat diamonds, uh, and make yourself all kinds of jewelry. I mean, they're real diamonds. You can't tell the difference. You can't tell by weight. You can't diamond test them. You can't put them in machines. You can't look at them with loupes or microscopes. You can't tell. Diamonds are dead, guys. These people are just hanging on because for centuries, practically, these jewelers would, well, let's say since World War II anyway, these jewelers would buy a diamond for $100 and sell it to you for 900 or 400. I mean, it's they love operating at 300, 400% profit. They're crazy, and they rip that. That's ripping people off, making that much profit. A good manufacturer makes 40%, maybe 60%, maybe 25%. They don't make 300%. This is scam. People grow up in the jewelry business. Somebody in the family puts you in the jewelry business, and you learn. And it's you never let on what things cost. It's a bunch of crooks. A bunch of crooks. And now it's falling apart with the gold and the silver. They're finished. And it's amazing how they clean. I look at the YouTube videos and they talk about how to tell a fake Rolex, right? All the time. That's these people clinging. The whole watch industry is dead because the Chinese are making watches that say Patek Philippe. They say it on the case, they say it on the bracelet, they say it on the watch. They're mimicking everything, and they're making awfully good watches. And they're selling them for 500, or in some cases $1,000. But I think you can get them a lot cheaper. I wouldn't want one because you're counterfeiting it, and they can only counterfeit the stainless steel. They got a way of spraying. It's not really spraying. They have methods of applying gold coloring to the stainless steel, and it looks a lot like gold, but it's not going to fool anybody that knows what gold looks like. So they're only really copying stainless steel watches, but they put all of these videos how to spot a fake. You can't spot the good fakes. People have taken them into Rolex for service, for cleaning, and they didn't tell. People have bought fake Rolexes from dealers that have been selling Rolexes for you. It's not just Rolex. It's Panerai. It's Audemars Piguet. It's Cartier. It's all of them. And they've been selling Rolexes for 20, 30 years, and they getting fooled. And they're reselling them to customers, and the customers going into Rolex because it needs something, or he wants it cleaned or opened, and the Rolex service center, not the store. They fool the stores. The service center opens it up and well, this doesn't look right. That's what they're doing. When this guy went in with the fake Rolex and they just cleaned it, they didn't open it up and go inside, But the guy was holding it and handling it. They can't tell. So they say, well, how to spot a fake Rolex? What they should be doing is making videos how to spot a real Rolex. I think it'd be funny. I was even thinking of making one, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm going to take a break for a minute and come back. But there's so much falling apart right now. Disney, all the amusement parks, so much. It's happening faster and faster. Disney's plans are not going to work. They started initiating these plans years ago, probably 4 or 5 years ago, and they're not changing yet. They're being very stupid about it, and that's their problem, not mine. Good riddance. The cruise ships, the ships of Tarshish for us, are going to fall down hard. They're going to fall hard. Not going to work. Because the Trumps wrecking the economy with the tariffs, and they didn't plan on that. Trump is building something they call, in Paris they have a thing called l'Arc de Triomphe. It's a big structure that goes like this, and then across and down, and have a road that drives under it. The Germans and Nazis went there when they conquered France in World War II. They had big parades, For some reason, Hitler didn't knock it down, and Trump is wanting to build something around the Lincoln Monument or something, and they're calling it the l'Arc de Trump. He's trying to build a big thing like that to celebrate 250th anniversary of America. Yeah, demonic country the whole way through. Let me tell you something. Why doesn't that piece of garbage build houses for the homeless? There's a lot of homeless people that are on disability and Social Security and things like that. And they make money. They don't make a lot of money. They might make $1,200 a month. They might make $2,400 a month. And what they do is they buy themselves a mobile home, a portable home, like Winnebago sort of thing, right? They come in different sizes depending how big they are. And then they go to these parks where you can park them there, and you hook up to their water, you hook up to their electric, and you hook up to their I think you can get some sewage going from them too. I'm not sure on that sewage. I don't know how it works. And they live in these motor homes because they can't afford to rent apartments in which they have to pay the utilities and the food and the cooking and all that. So they got this motorhome, and they live in the park with it. And I don't know what the park charges them for a spot. Maybe, I don't know, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 probably, or maybe even $300. It depends where they are. And some of them are going to give them a flat rate with water and electricity. And, they probably have Wi-Fi there too. And probably not great Wi-Fi, but good enough to get by, right? What do I mean? So if they want to watch a Netflix movie, it might not be that great watching it because of buffering. So they got to download it and then watch it, that kind of thing. And they have a cell phone, and they get by. I don't know what it costs a month. I imagine if you were in New York State, it's going to cost you one thing. And if you're in Miami, it's going to cost, it just depends how, where you are, And that's how a lot of people are living. Of course, it's not as bad as sleeping in a car. You can't go with a car to these places and say, I want to sleep there. I don't know about it. There might have places where the guy owns a big piece of land. The guy might have 10 acres and he just paints spots in the road, and then people could come with their car and just live in their car, and then he builds communal washing machines where you put quarters in, showers, toilets, places to, I guess a guy could do that and charge people by the month to sleep in their car, and then the cops wouldn't bother them. But they might condemn it because it's not sanitary. I have no idea. I have no idea about that. I don't know if that exists at all. But anyway, that's what a bunch of people are doing because they could escape. They could make it, So in a lot of areas, if you want to get an apartment in a big housing complex where, 25 years ago it was $600-700, they're paying $1,400. Some places $1,800. They can blow their pension or disability money on that, where if they had the mobile home already, or they bought one, then they could make it and get by. So it's getting interesting. You're going to see Hamas get attacked again. I'd fall over if I saw Trump send his planes and soldiers in to attack them. It could be, actually, when I think about it, it might happen, but I'd be shocked to see it. And they turned on Qatar. So Qatar definitely wants to help Hamas start killing the Jews again. They're forcing a falling away between Trump and Qatar. Trump spoke with Putin, I think, for 2.5 hours. I don't know what came of it. Something about a peace summit in Hungary, and he wants Trump to come. This is Putin trying to do negotiations to stall Trump from putting the Tomahawk missiles into Ukraine. That's what I think it is. And I don't know what Trump's plan is to long term get out of this, but he might try to see if he could get somewhere with Zelensky where he keeps the territory in Ukraine, which he's never going to get. Zelensky is just all excited about blowing up Russia with the Tomahawk. Now, having gotten some insight into what BRICS is up to, Putin might just give in to Zelensky, do whatever he's got to do to make a deal, negotiate like hard as heck to get the best deal he can, and then stop the war and just concentrate on destroying America with BRICS. And that would be Putin's rather smart move, because they see Trump as a gutless wonder who doesn't do anything. And the chances of Trump attacking them over BRICS is slim and nothing. It's not going to happen, and they know that. Trump will do sanctions, he'll do tariffs, he'll do all sorts of junk, but he won't attack them. And they don't care about all that other stuff as long as he doesn't attack them. And then they can crush him economically. America's weak right now. It's not going to take a lot. So now I think you've got a reasonably decent idea what's going on in the world, as of a few hours ago anyway. And things are not looking up for America. They're getting worse and worse. Yes, Qatar is building a base in America. Is it Idaho? I can't remember. I think it might be Idaho. Yes. And I don't understand why Trump allows anything like this. It's crazy. And he did a mutual uh, defense deal with Qatar, too. He wants their money. Trump's doing nothing for the homeless. You know, the homeless in Gaza, people pay to give them tents. Okay? Trump doesn't even give them a tent. Trump doesn't, you could make a wood floor tent, right? You bring it 6 inches off the ground, or to be better, you bring it a foot off the ground so you don't have to worry about water flooding and all that, right? You give them 1 inch thick wood, and then you put a canvas tent over it with a fly. So in other words, you have a canvas tent, and then you have sort of an outer tent that covers the roof and down the sides, maybe by a foot or two, so the rain doesn't really pound the actual tent. Okay, and you set up communal bathrooms and communal showers, and you put washing machines and dryers in, so they could clean their clothes, right? That's all you need. Okay? That's all you need. Do they do it? No. They don't do it. He won't even do that. There's people living in tents all over the United States. The economy did it to them mostly. A lot of them are drug addicts, you know. Yeah, this he doesn't care. He doesn't even talk about doing anything for the homeless. He doesn't even talk about it. People go to shelters. They get bed bugs, criminality, I guess, robbing your goods. There's people there, you know. If he just built studio apartments, okay, for these people, let's say you gave them 17 by 15, and it had a bathroom small with a shower, and in that 17 by 15, they had a refrigerator and a sink and a little stove, and they had a sleeper sofa that they could open up into a bed and a piece of carpet and two windows or one window, put an air conditioner, which is also the heater in there, and these people would be happy as a pig in a stink. Why? They could keep their stuff there and shut the door and lock it. They can leave their things in their house. They can go places. They can do things. What would it be like? Well, there would be there would be cockroaches all over the building, coming into everybody's apartment, no matter how clean you were. They'd find a way to get in, okay? And there'd be a horrible cockroach problem. And there would probably be rats and mice because people are drug addicts, alcoholics would move in and they would not throw the garbage out. And the bugs would be there and they don't care. A junkie will sit there and shoot up and the drugs and rats will walk on them and they don't care about that. They don't care about anything as long as they're high. Everything's good. When they're high, they're good. Everything's good, you know. So that would be one problem you'd have with the homeless. But what about the tents? Uh, Now, how do you keep them warm in the tents? That's an issue, isn't it? You can put electricity in there, and they could plug in a heater. You could have a heater in there. I don't know what else you could do. Run a heater. Put it, hang it up high up in the tent where you can't knock it down or put it on the floor. Problem is, you put it in the floor, they might put something on it and catch fire. If you put it up high in the tent, they wouldn't. The tent has to be 6.5 feet high or something like that. So you can put it in there and then just leave it on for all the time when it's cold and you're in there and you warm up. You'd probably keep you pretty warm. You're probably not going to walk around in your underwear. You're going to have to wear, clothing in the tent and maybe wear a sweater or a jacket or something like that. You'd be okay. You wouldn't die and freeze to death unless you were trying to live like this in some place where it was, 0 degrees. But as long as it was above freezing most of the time, of 32 or above, the people would make it. Where you're talking about temperatures of 0, a tent like that isn't gonna really do well. You'd have to um, put them in some place that had solid walls. That would work. But the tents don't insulate enough. If it's 42 degrees, 45 degrees, then you're in the tent and there's a heater even 40 degrees, hey, you're going to be okay. So that would cover a lot of the United States, and a lot of it wouldn't work in the winter. But, you could build these apartments and Let them live there. You can put them, you know, what they did in the Depression is they took the people and they put them in work camps, finding things for them to do, like building roads and national parks and building staircases. And they just found anything for them to do, you know. And they used to lock them in the room at night. These guys, the workers, the money would be sent home to their family, and they would get into a barracks. You know, after work was over, they they'd go back to where they were. And you know, when the weather was good, they probably sat outside and drank coffee and tea and juice and talked to each other and wrote letters and, you know, just stayed outside. And then eventually they had to go to sleep. There was no TV sets back then. So they would probably have to be inside their barracks by a certain hour, probably 8, 9 o'clock. And then somebody would come around and lock them in. And they were fenced in as well, so they couldn't get out. And then they would get up in the morning and they would probably have a head count and get breakfast, go back, and then go to work. You know, they don't even bother with that anymore. They just have no regard for the poor people. They don't care. You know why they make the old age pensions in most of these countries so bad? Because they don't want the people living. You know, some of the countries used to really treat them well, like Spain, going back maybe 15 years. That's quite a while ago. We're giving people retirement pensions at 50, $3,000 a month plus medical. That's 15 years ago. That was good money in Europe. 3,000 US dollars a month, plus you had good medical coverage, right? They probably had dental and everything. They don't want to give you dental coverage anymore. But, you know, why doesn't Medicaid give them dental coverage, you know? So they would have that much money. Today, that would be like getting 5,000 a month. Now, people in the countries in the Nordic, like Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, and those people, Finland, they get very, very, very good pensions. It wouldn't be unusual to see people getting $4,000 or $5,000, even more, even $55,000 or $6,000 a month in pensions from these countries. They live comfortably when they retire. They can take trips. They're supposed to live as well as working people live. Okay? So they can buy clothes, they could have a car, they could take a trip, they get their medical, you know, and they're trying to help these people have a nice retirement. America is trying to kill the people when they retire. They're no good. Trump is the same way. There's no difference with Trump. What are you there for? You're there to work in their businesses, be a consumer, and buy their goods and prosper them so they could have yachts and jets and mansions. And when your working days are over, go try to live on Social Security and then drop that as soon as you can. You know, in some places, people are paying $700-800 a month for the supplemental. There's two healthcare supplements you got to buy. The regular Medicaid pays for precious little. You know, it's so bad you can go in there and they'll give you abdominal surgery and then send you home after the surgery. Could you imagine trying to walk out of there after that? The pain? Unbelievable. And they don't give you IV medication when you're out of the hospital. The only thing they'll give you is tablets. You know, unbelievable. Now, they do make fentanyl lollipops where you can put them in your mouth and suck on them, and it works very quick. But I don't know how quick they ought to give those out. I don't know if they would, but Yeah, America does nothing for the poor people. They do more for the illegal immigrants, Satan's chosen people. You know who they are? The ones that are killing us. We're trying to. They that's Satan's goal, right? They uh, they get aid in a lot of these countries, but the retired people, the old people that worked in their businesses and factories and uh, became consumers and helped make the rich even richer, they get nothing. And they want you to die. They don't want to give you good medical. If you got enough money to pay for it, then fine. Then you'll have good medical. Then you'll live longer, they think, right? Okay. But most people can't do it. So they give you crap medical. They don't give you dental, as far as I know. I could be wrong. And they break your back. You know, they're talking about bumping Social Security and, all the disability insurances and all that. Something like 2.7% next year. It should be 10%, at least 15%. 2.7. They're terrible people. See, they're life-threatening, terrible people, and people just keep voting for them. These transactional Satan bots that just torment them and smile and pat them on the back and tell them they love them while they're killing them. That's what the unclean spirits do to the people that serve them, and they don't know it either. All the fires, how many people lost their houses? I don't hear nothing about Trump helping them. Do you? I don't hear nothing. Not a thing. Nothing. He might help the insurance companies when they go bust. So if you're a homeowner and you got a mortgage, you're going to have fire insurance and you'll get some degree restored, right? That's the house. Now you might not have contents. So if you don't have content insurance, all your clothes and furniture, you're not going to get compensated back. So you got to start over. It's a sick thing. Are there any movements out there to make America support? No, they're out there fighting for the Palestinians. Why don't they go out and they used to have in the 70s, 60s and 70s, they had a group called the Gray Panthers. Okay? They were gentle old people that were retired. These were not militants. They didn't go around burning and hitting people and throwing things at police and burning cars. None of that. They basically organized and they told the politicians, we got a lot of votes and we're going to vote you out. You got to help us. And things started getting better with the Great Panthers. But what happened is I don't know what America did, but they got rid of it. And they lasted for 10 or 15 years maximum, and they died off, and that was it. But they were fighting for their rights, and it never continued on they didn't pass it on to the next generation. But had they prevailed by now, the average Social Security, I think, is roughly $2,000 or something. So it would probably be 4,000, 4,500. But the last thing the government wants to see is the regular working guy running around having a good time, because he's going to have a longer life. He's going to take care of himself. The poor people don't care. They sit there and they're falling apart. They can't get any decent medical coverage or work done. And they give up easier. They die sooner. They can't get good food. They eat junk. It's better than starving. They don't care. They have to live in bad neighborhoods. They can only go out during the day. You live in a bad neighborhood, your best time to go out to do whatever you got to do is wake up about 5 in the morning and go out, or maybe at 6, get out of your house. Because these people are up late at night, they're sleeping. They're not active till, 11, 12 o'clock. The way the drug companies move their drugs, they I don't know the names of the drug company. I don't know, Johnson and Johnson, Foremost McKesson, or who knows, whatever they call themselves. Uh, they move, fentanyl, morphine, cocaine, all of these things around. They put them in trucks that, are going to say, Granny Brown's Bread Company, or, something like that, right? And or they have an unmarked truck, but that looks suspicious. A stealth truck, why is it stealthy? They're not putting guys in there with shotguns and rifles and pistols. I don't believe they do that. The drugs don't have a high dollar value, and if they pay guards to go with the truck and have shootouts, the insurance for that is super expensive, and they could bankrupt the company. They could hit a few innocent bystanders and paralyze 3 or 4 people, and they can wind up with a 30 or 50 or $100 million bill. They're not going to do that. So they just tell them, look, anybody who wants to hijack you and point a gun, just submit to them. They're not going to shoot you. They don't want to kill you. They just want the drugs. Give them the truck. Give them the drugs. Go sit on the curb, lay down, whatever they want. Let them have the drugs. Nobody's going to get mad at you. That's how they do it, right? But what they do is they move the drugs at crazy hours because the crooks normally aren't going to be able to stay up past, let's say the most 5 in the morning. They're going to be too stoned, too drunk. But professional crooks will. If they know they're going to move the drugs out at 5 o'clock, they'll go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock, wake up at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, have some coffee, get ready, go to work, get their trap set up, and spring it. But that's a professional. And why is a professional wanting to hijack narcotics? That's not their style. It could be, it happens, but it's normally not what they're looking to do. So that's when you can move. So if you were an elderly person or a not elderly person in a really bad neighborhood because you needed cheap rent, what can you do at 6 o'clock in the morning? Well, precious little. You could go to the ATM machines. You could do not much else, but you go into the supermarket, they might be open at 6 or 7. You could go there early in the morning and get your food, and then go back to the house. If you got to go to the bank, you could probably go to the bank. They probably open 8, 9. Go to the bank, go to the stores, get fresh air, sit outside. And, probably by 11, 12 o'clock, the bums start coming out, 1 o'clock. A lot of them are going to stay asleep till 2, 3 o'clock. A lot of them, a lot of them. And they'll get up then, and they work they're active at night, That's when they get active. So, the morning is usually your time. But, when it gets nighttime and they get out, you got to stay locked up in the house. It's lousy, And then you got this idiot mayor in Los Angeles who's declaring an emergency because the ICE and Homeland Security are doing immigration raids on illegal immigrants that are going around smacking people upside the head, raping people, doing all kinds of sick things, right? And he's calling it an emergency because these people got taken out of the country. See, that's ruler against ruler in Jeremiah 50:51. But it's so sick. And then you see them coming here and they say Trump 2028. They want more of this. They didn't have enough. Was Biden any better? No, they were all no good. Trump's the same as Biden and Obama and Bush and Eisenhower and Jimmy Carter and all of them. They were all morons. They're all transactional psychotics and they're morons. And they keep voting for him and keep putting him in office, and it keeps getting worse and worse and worse and worse. America in the 50s, even into the 60s, wasn't this way. Welfare was enough to live on. I had a friend that was a welfare worker before he got into probation, and he told me that they used to buy these people cars in New York. People on welfare, they wouldn't get them a new car. They gave them a used car, a safe used car. Okay, they would call the social worker and they say, my apartment's very cold. I need money for heat and blankets for the children. And the social worker would have to go over there and, visit the apartment and see what the story is. And then he'd go back and tell his boss, we need to allocate, they give him a check for $150 or something so they could go buy heaters and blankets, right? They pay their electric bill. They had money to go to the doctor. They had clinics and stuff. They could go to free clinics, and they used to be able to get by. They lived in not great neighborhoods, but they lived okay. And they would get as many children as they could handle, and the money kept going up and up and up. And then their children kept going on welfare, and it sinks the country. People like this are immigrants, and they sink the country. America had at World War II, I think, 140 million people. And they weren't fighting each other, killing each other. The streets were safe. They weren't loaded with drugs. They weren't having people running around doubting what kind of sex they are and creating all kinds of sexes. And they didn't have any of this. They pretty much left people alone. They discriminated against other people, but they didn't go burn them down. People weren't going around getting raped. Look, I can remember even in the late 60s, people would go out at night in New York City by themselves, go shopping and say, it was like mid 60s was much safer. Mid 65, 66, 63. People were running around by themselves. The stores in the summer would be open till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. People would walk the streets themselves and go there, women and stuff like that. Most of the time, they would go when it was still daylight or twilight, but some of them went out when it was dark. I mean, we used to stay out at night as kids. Depending on what, we would stay out till 11 o'clock. And the people in the building used to sit outside because we didn't have air conditioning. Most people didn't. We did a little bit, but they'd sit outside on chairs, lawn chairs, and talk until it got cool, which was 10, 11 o'clock at night. Then they'd go upstairs and sleep with a fan. And nobody was doing anything, It was, you know, reasonably safe. I used to 11, 12 years old, ride the subways with my friends or ourselves, maybe 11, maybe 12 rather. I would say 12, 13, traveling around on the subways ourselves. Buses, subways. We didn't have any issues with it. Uh, place is gone. And then people still, Trump 2028. How thick are they? You know, the tariffs is just another tax on the people. You got to pay the tariff. And he's making it worse, and he's threatening to increase the tariffs now. I don't hear anything again coming about him coming up with a economic stimulation check. Maybe he decided he doesn't want to do that. Satan might have told him, "You cut that out. We don't help the poor people. You listen to me. You don't give them nothing. You know, you only give my people things, which are the rich people." You know, so he might have stopped it. He may do it. He may not. I think he was. If he's going to do it, he's going to do it before Thanksgiving. He needs to worry about Halloween. It sounds stupid, but $3.9 billion are spent on candy and Halloween, just on the Halloween candy. And the way it is now, it's probably going to be down to 1 billion, and they're going to hurt a lot of industries. But I think Trump is prepared to do that. He's not going to cut the stimulus check out for people to do Halloween. It's stupid. He's going to cut it out probably the Monday before Thanksgiving. That's what I think he'll come up with it. So that people will get it, you know, some will get it Monday, some Tuesday, some Wednesday. So they could go out and they could buy a Thanksgiving turkey and have a Thanksgiving, but they might blow the money before Christmas. His big thing is to help the people with Christmas, because he's going to kill the retailers. The way it is now, if he doesn't do a stimulus check, and the Christmas is going to be so bad, department stores, malls, and a lot of places are going to close. They're going to do so little business on Christmas, they're not going to want to bother anymore. It's going to be over. They'll close branches of stores that didn't perform and stuff like that. They'll just shut down. Job layoff, everything will get worse. So when do you do the stimulus? I mean, you want to help the people for Thanksgiving, but they're likely going to, I don't know, you know, Black Friday comes after Thanksgiving, on the Friday after the Thursday. And that's when people buy the Christmas presents. But are poor people going to have the wherewithal to do that? Or are they going to just want to fill their refrigerator up now and fix the knock in the car, fix the brakes in the car, fix the TV, pay the back bill on the internet so they have internet again, or they got Netflix again, or crap like that? I don't know what they're going to do. You know, he can't give them the money December 20th. They need more time to go shopping. By the time you wait till December 20th, the shopping is dregs. You got to get out there by the 10th or the 1st. You know, I don't know how he's going to do it. And they'll figure it out. But he might still do it just before Thanksgiving. But I don't know. If he was smart, he would do one stimulus in November before Thanksgiving and then do another one before Christmas. That would be the smartest thing to do. So they would get through Thanksgiving and they would get through Christmas, and it would cheer the people up. It's like boiling them in their own, you know, like the frog boiling in water, you know. It's a sick thing to do to an animal, and they could do that to he could do that with the people. I don't know. Or he may just say the heck with the people. If they're starving and there's a shortage of jobs and blah, 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 they'll just have to work for less. You know, and then the companies could give them work camps. Well, come work for our company and you could live in our barracks with your family, and, you know, you could eat in our kitchen, and, you know, I don't know, he may be sick enough to try something like that. He's sick. He's psychotic. He's nuts. People don't understand. This is a full-blown clinical psychotic individual. Transactional. Psychotic. And they're all this way. They're all narcissistic lunatics, and people are, and then they think they all have nuclear weapons. You think people like Putin, Zelensky, Trump, the guy in the UK, Canada, Trump, and North Korea, Pakistan, China, you think they have nuclear weapons and they wouldn't use them? Are you kidding me? How could that be? They wouldn't use them? You're sure of that, right? What evidence do you have that these people behave in a sane, logical fashion? Nothing. India wouldn't. Oh, come on. They don't got anything. And you see these sites that sit there and they talk about nuclear message given, nuclear signal, nuclear capable missile, nuclear capable plane, doomsday plane, this, that, da, 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 da. Oh my gosh. It doesn't quit. It doesn't quit. It just keeps going. So I don't know when we're going to get our redemption, but what I can tell you is I can't imagine Hamas flipping around and saying, okay, Mr. Trump, we're sorry, we'll disarm. Hey, they ain't going to do that. They're not going to do that. They thought they were going to get away with this because Qatar and Egypt put them up to it. And it ain't going to work. It's not going to work. Nope. So they're going to test everybody's mettle, and they're going to say, Trump won't attack us. If Netanyahu does, we'll go for protests all over the world. We'll start with the genocide. We'll start with the starvation. We'll start with everything all over again and see what we can do. That's what they're going to try. So I went away from that supermarket and I bought stuff from another store, and they delivered it, and there was about $70 worth of goods that never showed up. I went through my order. They had one company bring one, another company brought another, and then I'm missing it. I don't know, maybe it's still going to come. So I wrote them yesterday, still didn't hear back from them. So I'll have to keep after them and see what happened. Then eventually I got to tell them, well, I got to go to the credit card company, I suppose. And they're not going to like that. And that's what I got to do. I wonder if the truck driver kept the box on purpose. I don't see why he would. He wouldn't know it's in the box. I don't know what happened. Maybe they're still sending it. I have no idea. You know, a lot of these companies, you write them for customer service and they don't answer you. You call them on the phone, it's just a maze of uh, buttons and, press this, press this, press this, press that. They just don't want to help you. They just don't want to help you. They're just spiteful, mean, nasty people running the businesses in Israel. It's bad here. It's bad. So this war is going to start up again. And I think things will be worse this time. Israel's really bombing Hezbollah multiple times a day, different locations they're attacking. They're really trying to get Hezbollah beaten down worse than they were. And I don't know what's going to happen with Syria and Putin, if he's getting his bases back or not. I don't know. The Houthis in Yemen will start attacking shipping in Israel again. no doubt about it. And what's Iran going to do? Iran's got a lot of their own problems right now. What Trump might be trying to do is weaken Russia even more before he goes after Iran. So, in other words, he's maybe thinking if Russia's beaten down, they can't come to the aid of Iran. It'll be easier to take out Iran. That same logic would apply to Yemen also. So when Hamas fires up again, the Houthis are going to fire up again. And, see, if Trump had guts and he wants to walk this walk and talk the talk, he's got to deliver, and he doesn't deliver. So Hamas sees Trump as weak, very weak. That's why they're doing this. They gave the hostages back, so they're going to say, we were guaranteed no more war if we gave the hostages back. We did, and they're still doing the war. And they're going to disguise what was really said. Okay, let's see if I got any questions or prayer requests in the live stream, the chat. Yeah, Nevada's the same thing. Yeah, they're falling apart. See, they were following a plan over years. They gradually kept increasing the prices, like boiling the frog in water, to see if the people would be coming, but they were basically trying to get a higher class of person economically, and they're failing too. The economy's down, so they're not able to do it. Temporary fix mentality for votes never works out. Yeah. Yeah, they tried running towns and doing it the company store. It doesn't work, no. They're protesting. That's what they're trying to rely on as they're protesting. It's not good enough. All right. I'll say a prayer for all of us, and you true believers can agree. It's more powerful that way. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers and their kids and their households and their families. And I pray for all of us to have your shalom, peace and joy and calm and rest and the gifts of the Spirit. And we say strong in the word and strong in you and operate with faith, not sight. And we stick by the scriptures and we walk in the true gospel and have the true gospel. And I pray that we have your peace, safety, protection, and joy, and your healing and recuperative power flowing through us so we don't get sick or hurt, and our animals and pets. And that we'd be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole, and our animals and pets. And we have adequate finances. And I pray, my Heavenly Father, you lift off of us or loose all the works of the unclean spirits, be they coming from their governments, their businesses, their Satan bought people, or workers, employers, neighbors, whoever they are, causing works against us and making our lives miserable. I pray you lift or loose all these things off us and give us the good things and keep us strong in you and your word while we're going through these days. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Now, I want to remind you guys that you've got to stay with the scriptures. If you start building up pet peeves in the scripture that violate what Yeshua said, you're not in the true gospel. You're in another gospel. And that means you're accursed, according to Paul. You're going to have a curse. So I suffer a woman not to teach nor usurp authority over the man. So you start with the woman pastor stuff. You're going against that scripture. Okay? You're drinking, drunkenness is against the scriptures. You can drink wine, you can drink beer. You really should stay away from hard liquor. It's okay to drink this stuff, but you don't get drunk on it. That's not correct. Okay? And there's some of you that think you get fed spiritually and you're really supposed to muzzle the ox while he treads the grain, and you don't do offerings and you think that's okay. Well, the Lord calls that robbing. You're robbing him. And it's in the scriptures. Read, it's in more than one of them. Malachi 2 has it. You can read it in other places. Okay? You're robbing the Lord, and that's your own pet peeve. It's not the scripture. If you think you can go to the churches some of the time, boy, I would never do that. I wouldn't go step foot in one of those places any more than I'd go to an opium den. I wouldn't do it. Would you go to a meeting of the Satan church? No. What do you think these churches are? They're no different. They're disguised. They're the same thing. They don't follow the Bible. But you've got to, if you're going to start with, no, the Lord's dead, it doesn't mean anything. That's not the scriptures. Okay, you're looking for a pre-trib rapture. That's not the scriptures. Or a mid-trib or a post-trib. No. 4 times Yeshua said everybody goes up at the same day, the last day. You start spreading that, you're spreading another gospel. You want to be accursed? That's what that'll do for you. Look at all the current events. We had the Philippines had a 6-1 and I think a 6-6 or a 6-7 in the last 24 or so hours. It's a lot of earthquakes that's substantial already. They're getting hit bad. Your food prices are going up and they're going to continue to go up. But you can only have inflation for so long, then you get a recession. So you really need to get rid of these pet peeves that people have where they're going to cling to anti-Bible doctrines that they're going to keep clinging to. Okay, you don't go in a denomination. It's a division, like Apollos and Cephas. Paul really chided them for doing that. You don't do it. Don't go to these places, these churches. They don't, nowhere in the Bible did they take money for the people and buy a big building nobody lives in. That's not scripture. You don't do that. It's wrong. It's error. They're not helping the poor people either. It's wrong. It's error. It's another gospel. It's not the true gospel. Christmas tree. Did they ever get a Christmas tree in the Bible? Jeremiah 10 specifically talks about what appears to be a Christmas tree, and it's a very bad thing. They decorate it with tinsel and stuff, and it's a bad thing. It's in the scriptures as a bad thing. It's a pagan holiday. What about Thanksgiving? That's not in the Bible. I wouldn't put a lot of time and energy. You want to do Thanksgiving and thank God and have people over and feed them. I suppose you could do that, but it's not. You could observe the 4th of July too. You can do that. It's not a biblical thing. They're not imposing that as if it's a Bible holiday, 4th of July or Labor Day or President's Day or any of these things. So yeah, you could do it Thanksgiving. I wouldn't mess with Christmas though. I would ignore it. It's a pagan holiday. Would you go in a pagan temple and pray to Buddha? Why would you do that? Why would you do Christmas then? So you guys got to get your act cleaned up. Time is short. And you don't want to get caught on the short side of the stick, and not make it. I wouldn't want to. It's going to come suddenly. America's going to get hit suddenly. Look, Trump's not telling Netanyahu to go take his land back, not even Gaza. What about all the other countries? Qatar is Israel's land, so's Kuwait, so's Jordan, so's Saudi Arabia. All of that. It's all ours. Egypt, from the Nile River to the east, east of the Nile River, Lebanon. And he doesn't talk about us getting the land back. He wants to help keep the Arabs in the land. He wants us to have Abrahamic accords with them so we become friends and allies of those that are stealing our land and pumping our oil and keeping us poor. He wants us to be friends with them. That's what's really going on. Trump 2028. Why don't you just say Satan 2028? What I say is not MAGA, it's MIGA. Make Israel great again. And the Bible says that's where the Lord accepts you in Israel. But a lot of people will shun me because I'm a Levite. I'm a Jew. I live in Israel. What could he know? He's an idiot. Everybody knows the gospel is going to go forth from the heathen nations to Israel. No, it's backwards, goof. It goes forth out of Israel, the real gospel. The phony gospel goes out of America. That's what's been going on for the 2,000-year punishment. Read Hosea 6:1 and 2. Time's up. It's coming to an end. Recompenses is going to close out with the day of vengeance, and then we'll go into redemption. I can't tell you when that's going to happen, but it will. Very shortly. Very shortly. We're not going to know the day or the hour. But if you're running around out of the gospel with crazy doctrines that you read scriptures and they're very plain and they say one thing and you find reasons to not observe them, well, that's not the gospel. That's you out of the gospel and accursed because you have another gospel. So I shouldn't tell you this, right? Because it'll get you mad and upset. It's better to just let you go to the lake of fire? You know, I get so few offerings here, and I'm the only one telling the truth. I mean, people who don't give offerings to say, I'm not painting them a pretty picture, but all things work to good for those who love the Lord. It's all good, but they don't believe it's all good, even though the Bible says all things work for good to those who love the Lord. They don't believe it. They don't like it. I teach spiritual warfare, but you can't just teach spiritual warfare. I have to teach that. I have to teach the watchman stuff so they know what's going on in the world and how close we are, and I have to teach the prophecies of Israel. And they don't like a lot of what I teach. They come and listen to me and they want me to work for free. And I don't live very well. I live very unwell. And that's one reason I can't wait for this to be over. But a lot of you can't wait for it to be over either. It's very difficult, what I go through. And I got to be here because it's here in Israel that he accepts you. And there's other reasons I have to be here. And I'm here. And it's a really hard place to live. And then you say it's hard to live there too. Well, were you being attacked with missiles for the last 2 years? Have you been attacked in the streets with people trying to kill you all the time? Come on. You haven't had it like we have. If you're in Ukraine or Russia, maybe you did. But no, if you're in Gaza, you did. But no, we've had it bad. We've had it bad. And we got an enemy as the prime minister, and he keeps us in trouble. He hates us. He's with the devil. He's not with us. He's a horrible person. And I don't know what he's going to do without a war, because the Supreme Court of Israel and the Attorney General want to shut this jackass down. They know what he does. They're not his friend. They want to get rid of him. And he doesn't want to be gotten rid of. Okay, so that's what I got, and I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. Thank you.